An ordinary family photo sat online for years, until someone zoomed in on one child's hand. What they discovered reopened a missing persons case, exposed a hidden bunker in the woods, and uncovered a terrifying secret nobody saw coming. But the most horrifying detail wasn't the extra finger, it was who was standing behind the camera. The photo looked completely normal. At least, that's what everyone thought in the beginning. It showed the Harper family standing together outside a small wooden cabin deep in the forests of northern Montana. The sky behind them glowed orange from the setting sun, and tall pine trees surrounded the area in every direction. It looked peaceful. Quiet. The kind of place families visited to escape busy city life. Daniel Harper stood on the left side of the picture with one arm wrapped around his wife, Melissa. He wore a dark blue jacket and smiled proudly at the camera. Melissa stood beside him holding 6-year-old Noah close to her side while 8-year-old Ava stood in front of them wearing a red sweater and muddy boots. The children looked happy. Noah grinned widely with missing front teeth while Ava held a small stuffed rabbit under one arm. Nothing seemed strange. Nothing seemed dangerous. And that was exactly why the photograph became so terrifying later. The picture was uploaded to Melissa Harper's social media account on October 14, 2017. The caption simply read, "Final night at Black Pine Cabin. The kids never want to leave this place." Friends and relatives quickly filled the comments section with heart emojis and compliments. "Beautiful family. Those kids are getting so big. Looks like a perfect vacation." For months, the image sat online unnoticed like millions of other family photos shared every day. Then the Harper family disappeared. 6 months after the camping trip, neighbors reported something unusual. The Harpers had not been seen for nearly a week. At first nobody worried too much because the family often traveled without warning. Daniel worked remotely as a graphic designer, and Melissa stayed home with the children, so they had freedom to move around often. But when mail began piling up outside their cabin and nobody answered phone calls, concern slowly turned into fear. Police arrived at the property on a rainy April morning in 2018. What they found made no sense. The family car was parked outside. The front door was unlocked. Dinner plates sat on the kitchen table with half-eaten food still on them. A cartoon played quietly on the television upstairs. It looked as if the family had suddenly vanished in the middle of an ordinary evening. There were no signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No blood. No evidence of a struggle. The Harper family had simply disappeared. Police searched the surrounding forests for weeks using dogs, helicopters, and volunteers, but no bodies were ever found. Slowly the case lost public attention. News stations stopped covering it, and investigators eventually ran out of leads. By 2021, most people had forgotten the Harper family completely. Except for one person. A small true crime content creator named Ethan Cole. Ethan spent years researching strange disappearances and unsolved cases for his online channel. Unlike larger creators, Ethan focused on tiny details other people ignored. He believed even the smallest clue could solve a mystery. Late one night, while searching through old public records connected to the Harper case, Ethan discovered Melissa Harper's abandoned social media profile. He clicked through family photos, birthday pictures, and camping memories, hoping to find something investigators may have missed. Then he stopped. One image caught his attention immediately. The family photo from Black Pine Cabin. At first Ethan couldn't explain why it bothered him. Something about the picture felt wrong. Not obvious. Just unsettling. He leaned closer to his computer screen. The smiles looked natural. The background looked normal. But then his eyes moved toward Noah's left hand. Ethan froze. The child's fingers looked strange. Too long. Too thin. Almost as if another hand was resting behind his. He zoomed in further. His stomach tightened. There appeared to be 6 fingers. Noah should only have had 5. At first Ethan assumed it was a camera blur or shadow distortion. Old phone cameras often created strange effects when subjects moved during photos. But the more he studied the image, the more disturbed he became. One of the fingers looked larger than the others. Not like a child's finger. An adult's. Pale skin. Sharp knuckle. Long fingernail. And it appeared to wrap around Noah's wrist from behind. Ethan stared at the screen in silence. Someone else had been touching the boy when the photo was taken. Someone hidden outside the camera frame. A cold feeling moved through his chest. He checked every family member carefully. Daniel's hands were visible. Melissa's hands were visible. Ava stood too far away. The extra hand belonged to nobody in the picture. At 2:13 a.m., Ethan uploaded a short video titled, "The Creepy Detail Hidden in the Missing Harper Family Photo." He expected maybe a few thousand views. Instead, the internet exploded. By morning, hundreds of people were analyzing the image online. Some claimed the hand belonged to a ghost. Others believed it was edited. But many viewers noticed something even more disturbing. In the cabin window behind the family, a faint reflection appeared. It looked like someone standing inside the cabin, watching them. The story spread across social media within hours. News stations picked it up. True crime podcasts discussed it nonstop. Millions of people suddenly became obsessed with the missing Harper family again. Then an anonymous user posted a comment that terrified everyone following the case. The comment read, "Look closely at the trees behind Noah." People zoomed into the background again. At first they saw nothing except shadows between the pines. Then slowly, a shape became visible. A tall figure. Standing perfectly still between the trees. Watching the family. And when image experts sharpened the photograph, one detail became horrifyingly clear. The figure appeared to be smiling. The internet refused to let the Harper case die again. After Ethan Cole's video went viral, millions of people became obsessed with the strange family photograph. Online forums filled with theories. Some believed the figure in the woods was a stalker. Others thought the family had been part of a cult. A few even claimed supernatural forces were involved. But detectives focused on something more important. The unidentified hand. For the first time in years, police reopened the Harper investigation. Detective Laura Bennett, one of the original investigators on the case, returned to Black Pine Cabin with a new forensic team in November 2021. Snow covered the ground as officers stepped inside the abandoned home once again. The cabin looked frozen in time. Dust covered the furniture. Family photographs still hung on the walls. Children's toys remained scattered across the upstairs hallway exactly where they had been left years earlier. The silence inside the cabin felt unnatural. One officer later described it as a house that still felt occupied. This time investigators searched every inch of the property carefully. Modern forensic technology allowed them to test areas that had been ignored during the original investigation. Floors were scanned. Walls were checked for hidden compartments. Special lights searched for traces of blood invisible to the human eye. At first, nothing unusual appeared. Then one officer entered Noah Harper's bedroom. The room was small with faded dinosaur wallpaper and glow-in-the-dark stars still attached to the ceiling. A tiny bed sat against the wall beside a shelf filled with old comic books. Everything looked ordinary. Until forensic lights revealed dark stains beneath the floorboards near the bed. Detective Bennett immediately ordered the wood removed. As workers pried up the old boards, a terrible smell slowly filled the room. Underneath the floor was dried blood. A large amount of it. Far too much to belong to a simple injury. The entire team fell silent. For years, people believed the Harper family vanished without violence. Now investigators knew someone had bled heavily inside the cabin. Samples were rushed to the crime lab. 2 days later, results confirmed the blood belonged to Daniel Harper, the father. But Daniel's body was still missing. The discovery shocked the country. News stations began covering the case non-stop again. Ethan Cole gained millions of followers overnight after his original theory proved connected to real evidence. But the deeper investigators looked, the stranger the case became. While removing more floorboards in Noah's room, officers found scratches carved into the wood underneath. The writing looked rushed and uneven, almost as if someone carved it in complete panic. Detective Bennett brushed dirt away carefully and read the message aloud. He was here. The room became quiet. Another sentence appeared beneath it. Don't let him take her. Nobody understood what it meant. Who was he? And who was her? Investigators immediately questioned Melissa Harper's remaining relatives. Most family members admitted they knew very little about Melissa's private life during the months before the disappearance. But Melissa's older sister, Rebecca, revealed something deeply unsettling. About 3 months before vanishing, Melissa began acting strangely. She was terrified all the time, Rebecca told detectives during an interview. At first I thought she was stressed or depressed, but then she started saying someone was watching the cabin. Rebecca explained that Melissa often called late at night crying quietly so the children would not hear her. One night Melissa whispered something Rebecca never forgot. He stands between the trees, she said. Every night around midnight. Rebecca begged her sister to contact police, but Melissa refused. She thought nobody would believe her, Rebecca explained. She kept saying he never came close enough to leave evidence. Detectives asked whether Melissa described the men. Rebecca nodded slowly. He always wore gloves, she said. Gray gloves. The same gloves visible in the figure from the family photo. Police returned to the cabin immediately. This time they searched the surrounding forest more carefully, especially the tree line visible behind the family in the original image. That search led to another disturbing discovery. Buried beneath dead leaves behind the cabin, investigators found dozens of cigarette butts hidden near a group of trees. DNA testing later proved they belonged to an unknown male. Someone had spent long periods secretly watching the Harper family from the woods. But the most chilling evidence came from inside the house. While examining old electronics recovered from the cabin, technicians unlocked Ava Harper's forgotten tablet device. Investigators hoped it might contain messages or clues connected to the disappearance. Instead, they found fear. The tablet contained over 40 photographs taken secretly from Ava's bedroom window during the weeks before the family vanished. Every picture showed the same thing. A tall man standing among the trees, watching the cabin. Sometimes he stood far away near the forest edge. Other times he appeared terrifyingly close. In one image, he stood only a few feet from Ava's bedroom window. Always wearing the same dark coat. Always smiling. His face remained blurry in most photographs, but one detail appeared clearly in every single image. His right hand. 6 fingers. Detective Bennett felt sick while reviewing the pictures. Whoever this man was, he had stalked the family for months. Maybe longer. But the most disturbing photo was saved last in the tablet gallery. The picture had been taken only 3 days before the family disappeared. Unlike the others, the man was no longer standing outside. He was inside the cabin. The image showed him partially hidden at the end of a dark hallway near the children's bedrooms. Watching. Waiting. Police realized something horrifying. The stalker had eventually entered the house. Without the family noticing. Or perhaps after they were already trapped. The discovery changed the entire investigation overnight. What once seemed like a mysterious disappearance now looked like a planned attack carried out by someone patient, organized, and dangerously obsessed. Then another clue surfaced. A retired mailman named Walter Green contacted authorities after seeing Ethan's viral video online. His statement would lead investigators toward the darkest part of the case, and toward the men hidden in the trees. The photographs found on Ava Harper's tablet changed everything. For years, investigators believed the Harper family disappeared without warning. But the images proved the family had been stalked long before they vanished. Someone had watched them from the forest for months. Maybe even longer. Detective Laura Bennett spent hours studying every photograph carefully. The mysterious man always appeared alone, standing silently between the trees. Sometimes snow covered the ground around him. Other times rain blurred the camera lens. Yet no matter the weather, the figure returned again and again. Always wearing the same dark coat. Always smiling. And always keeping his right hand visible. 6 fingers. That detail became the center of the entire investigation. Detectives contacted medical experts and searched state databases for people born with polydactyly, a condition that causes extra fingers or toes. Thousands of names appeared at first, but most were quickly eliminated. Then one file stopped investigators cold. Victor Hale. Age 53. Former child psychologist. Missing since 2009. The moment Detective Bennett opened his case file, she felt something was wrong. Victor Hale had once been considered one of the most respected child behavioral specialists in Oregon. He worked with troubled children, appeared on local television programs, and even gave lectures at schools about childhood trauma. People trusted him. Parents trusted him. Children trusted him most of all. But behind the calm smile and professional image, investigators later uncovered something terrifying. In 2009, Victor became the primary suspect in the disappearance of 2 siblings from Portland, Oregon. The children vanished after attending a private counseling session connected to Victor's clinic. No bodies were ever found. Before police could arrest him, Victor disappeared completely. His abandoned office contained disturbing drawings made by children during therapy sessions. Many showed forests, underground rooms, and tall shadowy figures with oversized hands. One drawing was especially disturbing. A child had sketched a smiling man standing beside a cabin surrounded by pine trees. The cabin looked almost identical to Black Pine Cabin. Detective Bennett immediately checked property records connected to Victor Hale. What she discovered sent chills through the investigation team. Years before the Harper family moved there, Victor Hale owned Black Pine Cabin. The property had remained abandoned after his disappearance until Daniel Harper purchased it at a suspiciously low price in 2015. Nobody knew why Victor sold it so cheaply. But investigators now believed he never truly gave it up. He had returned. And he had been watching the new family living inside his old home. News of Victor Hale spread quickly across national media. People became obsessed with his background. Former co-workers described him as intelligent but deeply manipulative. Some claimed he became emotionally attached to certain child patients in unhealthy ways. Others remembered strange habits. Victor often wore gloves, even indoors. He hated having his hands photographed. And according to one former employee, Victor once became furious after a child asked why he had 6 fingers. He locked himself in his office for hours, the woman told reporters. After that, he always kept his right hand hidden. The deeper detectives investigated Victor Hale, the darker the case became. Then a new witness came forward. Walter Green, a retired mailman, contacted authorities after seeing Ethan Cole's viral video online. Walter had delivered mail to Black Pine Cabin during the months before the Harper family disappeared. At first he thought nothing unusual about the family. They seemed normal, Walter explained during his interview. Quiet, but happy. But one memory suddenly returned after he saw the six-fingered hand online. About 2 weeks before the disappearance, Walter arrived at the cabin during the afternoon. As he approached the mailbox, he noticed 6-year-old Noah standing near the woods talking to a tall man wearing a dark coat. Walter assumed the stranger was a family friend. But something about the interaction felt strange. The man barely moved. He simply stood there smiling while Noah talked excitedly. Walter rolled down his truck window and asked who the stranger was. Noah smiled innocently and replied, "That's the man with the magic hands. He says he used to live here." Walter remembered feeling uncomfortable immediately. The stranger slowly turned toward him but never spoke. Then Walter noticed the gloves. Gray gloves. The same gloves seen in Ava's photographs. By the time Walter finished placing the mail in the box, the men had disappeared back into the trees. Detective Bennett realized something horrifying. Victor Hale had introduced himself to Noah directly. The stalker was no longer hiding. He had already become part of the children's lives. Police organized a massive search across the forest surrounding Black Pine Cabin. For days, officers combed through miles of dense woodland looking for hidden structures, campsites, or burial grounds connected to Victor. Most investigators expected nothing. Then a search dog began barking wildly near a hill covered in dead leaves and fallen branches. Officers dug carefully into the ground. Beneath the dirt, they uncovered a hidden metal hatch. The air smelled damp and rotten as investigators opened it slowly. Below the hatch was a narrow underground bunker. Detective Bennett descended first with a flashlight. What she found inside nearly made her sick. The bunker looked lived in. Children's toys covered the floor. Small shoes lined the walls. Old blankets sat folded beside shelves filled with canned food. Dozens of family photographs had been pinned across one side of the room, including pictures of the Harpers taken secretly from outside their cabin windows. But the most disturbing object sat in the far corner. A small wooden chair facing an old video camera mounted on a tripod. The setup looked carefully arranged. Like a recording studio built for children. Investigators searched the bunker for evidence while forensic teams cataloged every object. Inside locked cabinets, officers discovered stacks of videotapes labeled with names and dates stretching back nearly 15 years. Some labels contained only initials. Others contained children's names. One tape stopped everyone cold. Written across the front in black marker were 4 words. Harper family, final session. No one in the bunker spoke. Detective Bennett slowly picked up the tape. Because deep down, everyone already knew. The answers they had been searching for were finally waiting inside that recording. And whatever happened inside Black Pine Cabin that night was far worse than anyone imagined. The bunker remained sealed for nearly 12 hours while forensic teams collected evidence. No one was allowed inside except investigators and crime scene technicians. Detectives knew the videotapes discovered underground could contain critical evidence connected not only to the Harper family, but possibly to several unsolved disappearances stretching back over a decade. By nightfall, Detective Laura Bennett sat inside a temporary investigation room near Black Pine Cabin. Stacks of old videotapes covered the table in front of her. Some were damaged by moisture. Others had labels written in neat black handwriting. Session 4. Behavior Test. Night Interview. The titles alone felt disturbing. But one tape drew everyone's attention immediately. Harper family, final session. Nobody in the room spoke as the tape was inserted into an old video player. The screen flickered with static. Then the recording began. At first, the footage seemed calm. The camera faced the same small wooden chair investigators found inside the bunker. A dim yellow lamp lit the room while soft classical music played somewhere in the background. Then Victor Hale walked into frame. For the first time, investigators clearly saw the man from the photographs. He looked older than expected. Thin. Pale. His dark hair hung messily around his face, and deep shadows rested beneath his eyes. But the most disturbing thing was his expression. He looked calm. Completely calm. Victor sat down slowly in front of the camera and smiled. "If you are watching this," he said softly, "it means they finally found this place." Detective Bennett felt chills run down her arms. Victor spoke directly into the camera as if he knew investigators would someday discover the bunker. Then the video cut suddenly. A frightened little girl appeared sitting in the chair. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Victor's voice came from behind the camera. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl whispered her answer. "What are you afraid of?" "The dark," she replied quietly. Victor continued asking calm questions while the child trembled in the chair. At first the interview sounded almost harmless. But as more tapes played, the pattern became horrifying. Victor asked children deeply personal questions about their families, fears, and home lives. Some children cried. Others begged to leave. A few appeared strangely attached to Victor, almost as if he had manipulated them emotionally over long periods of time. Several children seen in the tapes matched names connected to cold missing persons cases across multiple states. The bunker was no longer just evidence in the Harper case. It was proof that Victor Hale had been abducting children for years. Investigators continued watching for hours. Then shortly after midnight, Detective Bennett inserted the tape labeled, "Harper Family, Final Session." The room went silent. Static flashed across the screen before the image finally cleared. Daniel Harper appeared tied to a chair. Blood ran down the side of his face. Melissa sat beside him with tears streaming down her cheeks while Ava and Noah clung tightly together near the wall. The children looked terrified. Victor's voice spoke calmly from behind the camera. "You shouldn't have taken my house," he said. Daniel struggled violently against the ropes. "You're insane," he shouted. "Leave my family alone." Victor stepped briefly into frame. For the first time, investigators clearly saw his right hand. 6 long fingers. Exactly like the hand hidden in the family photograph. Victor crouched in front of Ava carefully. Unlike the others, he spoke to her gently. "I told you I'd come back for you," he whispered. Melissa suddenly screamed at him to stay away from her daughter. Detective Bennett immediately noticed something strange. Victor's obsession seemed focused entirely on Ava. Not Noah. Not Melissa. Ava. Then Victor revealed something nobody expected. Years before the Harper family moved to Montana, Melissa briefly worked at a psychiatric care facility in Oregon where Victor Hale had once been treated following accusations of unstable behavior. According to Victor, he became obsessed with Melissa almost immediately. He believed they shared a special connection. Investigators watched in horror as Victor calmly explained that he followed Melissa for years after leaving the clinic. He secretly tracked her relationships, jobs, and addresses. Then Melissa became pregnant with Ava. Victor believed the child belonged to him. There was absolutely no evidence supporting the claim. But Victor clearly believed it completely. "She was always meant to stay with me," he whispered while staring at Ava. Melissa screamed that Victor was delusional. Daniel cursed at him repeatedly. But Victor remained frighteningly calm. Detective Bennett realized something terrifying. Victor had not kidnapped the family for revenge. He believed he was reclaiming something he thought belonged to him. Then the recording suddenly changed. A loud crashing sound echoed somewhere upstairs inside the cabin. Victor turned his head sharply toward the noise. Daniel immediately kicked the chair over and slammed himself into Victor's legs. The camera shook violently. Melissa grabbed the children and ran out of frame screaming. Victor shouted angrily while struggling with Daniel on the floor. For several seconds the footage became chaotic. Furniture crashed. Glass shattered. Someone screamed in pain. Then the camera fell sideways onto the ground. The image tilted toward the floor. And that's when investigators saw Noah. The little boy hid beneath a table, trembling and crying quietly. His eyes stared toward something happening off camera. Then slowly, another hand entered the frame beside him. A pale hand. 6 fingers. Holding a knife. Several investigators looked away from the screen immediately. The tape ended seconds later in complete darkness. Nobody inside the investigation room spoke. Detective Bennett felt sick. The recording confirmed Daniel Harper likely died during the struggle with Victor. But Melissa, Ava, and Noah were still missing. No bodies had been recovered. Nobody knew whether they escaped or were taken somewhere else. The next morning, search teams returned to the forest surrounding the bunker. This time investigators focused on remote areas near dried riverbeds and abandoned trails. After 3 days of searching, officers discovered freshly disturbed soil near a collapsed hunting path. Buried beneath the dirt were human remains. Dental records confirmed the body belonged to Daniel Harper. The nation reacted with horror after news outlets released details from the recordings. Victor Hale became one of the most feared serial abductors in modern criminal history. But the mystery remained incomplete. Where were Melissa and the children? Alive or dead, nobody knew. Then exactly 1 week later, a police dispatcher in Idaho received a phone call at 2:17 in the morning. A young woman whispered 4 terrifying words before the line disconnected. He finally fell asleep.